First time I heard about business coaching was through a friend who is also an artist who works in a different medium than I do, who had decided to open her own store. And she mentioned getting a business coach. And I didn't understand why at first, but as we were talking, she had some of the similar ideas that I had. We had a lane, and that was the artistry lane. But making that transfer to running a business was a little bit of a foreign concept to us both. She mentioned using Jen Ailey as a coach, and it sounded like, oh, that's nice for her. But I asked her a little bit more specifically, and she explained that Jen was helping her with everything from store name to store setup to color choosing to item placement to pricing to profit margin. And all of that started sounding much more practical than I anticipated it sounding. So I asked her to put me in touch. At first, I was a little skeptical about making that phone call, initially because this was a total stranger in my book who didn't know anything about me, didn't know anything about the artwork I created. Sure, maybe she knew business, but did she know my business? So I had some doubts. There was a moment of time when I filled out a little bit of paperwork, sort of introducing myself, my studio, what I wanted to achieve out of a coaching partnership, when I thought, nobody's ever going to read this. And if they do, they're not going to remember it once we get into the coaching part of things. But lo and behold, Jen obviously had taken fabulous notes during our first conversation, had read everything that I wrote down on our intake form, and really targeted her coaching to exactly what I needed. So, skeptical at the beginning? Absolutely. Satisfied by the end? Absolutely. As a result of working with Jen, we spent a lot of time on product evaluation. Originally, I didn't even realize that that was something I needed to do, but talking through my entire process from coming up with an idea to implementing the idea to marketing the idea, all of it needed tweaking. And Jen worked with me through that type of product evaluation. We talked about pricing, we talked about customer acquisition, and that was huge for me. We talked about a sustainable workflow. And really, as an artist, that's not something I had ever put into play. If I had an idea, I ran with it. And while that's great for ideation and for getting something off the ground, it's not sustainable. There has to be a process that you can reliably follow and expect predictable outcomes from. And on top of that, simple things that most people think about that I never did, tax deductions. That was a huge one for me. Social media management, financial record keeping, also nothing that I had ever put together on my own. And just some tweaks to the forms that I already had from Jen really made a huge difference in the amount of time I spent on finance and other record keeping, and also how I approached it. It was much less scary and big and bad and overwhelming to me. I feel like it's all much more approachable now, and it's just a normal part of my day. I would say one of the most important outcomes of working with Jen Ailey was the fact that I rebranded my business and was able to infuse my values, my perspectives into that brand. And it wasn't just as simple as picking new colors and a couple of fonts that looked good online. It was much deeper than that. And the entire process of rebranding spoke to how I approached art and how I wanted my art to be received by a customer or a collector. So that was a huge outcome for me. I'm sure that other people probably have some of the similar concerns I did. Is coaching for me? Is it something that my tiny business can afford? Is it something that's going to provide value for me in the long run? By way of answering that, the only thing I can say is that I learned more in 4 months of coaching with Jen than I had in 4 years of art business ownership trying to stumble through things on my own. What I received from the coaching process and what it brought to my business is invaluable. It's not something I can put a number or a definition to, but I would definitely do it again. And in future, I probably will.